Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. It's Ukraine War News Update, third part thereof, slightly different order. I'm doing my military aid video after my geopolitical one for the 19th of September 2024. I'm squeezing this recording in before my live, but this will come out no doubt after my live. I hope this is of interest. So we're going to start with Europe in general, and the new Council of Europe chief says Ukraine support is, quote, #1 priority. So this is Alan Bessie. We have seen a number of people, I reported this in my geopolitics video, talking about a number of people taking up significant positions in the European Parliament or the Council of Europe, and these are people who are strongly in support of Ukraine, although I think there's a vote and Rassemblement National in France voted against Ukraine aid or something anyway. Typically, there are many politicians, European politicians, MEPs, members of the European Parliament in the parliament there who are not strongly in support of Ukraine due to their being under the sphere of influence, the spell of the Russians. But nevertheless, people in important positions are very strongly in support of Ukraine. So Alain Berset is prioritizes support for Ukraine against Russian aggression and has a call with Ukraine's new foreign minister. So that's really good news. Kaya Kallas is taking over as well. She's a former prime minister. Is it prime minister of prime minister of Estonia, and she is very strongly in support of Ukraine, now taking over, I think, from Joseph Borrell. And he was actually very good for Ukraine as well. But this is good news. The EU has additionally allocated 160 million euros to Ukraine to support the energy industry to get through this winter, according to Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission. According to her, 60 million euros will be directed to humanitarian needs, so shelters and heaters, 100 million euros to repair works and renewable energy sources. Interestingly, I am going to be I'm in touch with Tembi Powell, who is a former mayor of Tauranga in New Zealand. In fact, quite apt that I'm wearing my Tui top here. It's a New Zealand beer. I'll be interviewing him soon. I'm in touch with him. He's just managed to acquire, 16 ambulances for Ukraine. He's really heavily involved in helping out with humanitarian aid. So anyway, that's by the by. Europe are being pretty strong at the moment, so that's good. Switzerland, not in the European Union. Ukraine will receive more than $68 million from Switzerland until 2028 for digitalization of services. Funds will be used for digitalization in healthcare, education, and to the restart of the state statistics services, as well as humanitarian demining. Germany has provided 50 million euros for the treatment of wounded Ukrainian soldiers. So far, 1,173 severely injured soldiers and civilians have been evacuated and treated in German hospitals, according to Interior Minister Nancy Faeser. Now, this is one of these sensible things from Germany, which is, okay, we're going to put a load of money aside, but actually it's inward investment. It's stimulating the economy through public investment, essentially, is what this is, with a moral dimension. So we're going to help Ukraine. We're going to help these people get better by saying you can come to Germany and we'll put $50 million. We're not going to put that into Ukraine to pay for your hospital care. It's too dangerous and not logistically feasible or whatever. So we'd rather spend money getting your people to Germany, give you treatment in Germany. And actually what we're doing is we're keeping our doctors in business. You'll be spending money in Germany, that kind of thing. So when I talk about military aid, the best thing to do, if for your own country's selfish point of view, is to help Ukraine by inwardly investing in your country, building weaponry. And the next best thing is to put that money into the Ukrainian economy to build their weapons with your money, and the next best thing is to order stuff from a third country. Okay, it's the same with stuff like this. The best thing for your own country, selfishly, is to provide those services from within your country, as long as you're funding it, right? So if you've got a pot of money, like, it's a different thing to say, come and use our medical systems, but then not put extra funding in. That then is a drain on your services, and you will get people getting a little bit frustrated that you're putting Ukrainians above your own population by pulling them in, not giving any extra money, and they're going up the queue instead of these people. So you're saying, right, we've got 50 million euros, going to spend it in our country on our medical services, bring them in, bish bash bosh, then they can go, and prosthetics and all this. You are stimulating industry, the health industry in your country, and it's exactly the same principle as manufacturing drones or missiles or whatever. So yeah, that's what the Germans are doing there. Germany's set to approve. Right, there's all sorts of stuff going on at the moment. So this is Max. Take all of this with a pinch of salt, and I'll explain. So okay, Germany's set to approve close to 400 million euros, according to Reuters, in military aid to Ukraine, in view of the continuously deteriorating military situation in Ukraine. There's a serious risk that Ukraine, without significantly increased material support, could be defeated in its defence campaign, the letter said. The Finance Ministry, following a request by the Defence Ministry, is asking for the approval of the extra expenditure by the Budget Committee of the Lower House of Parliament. So this is what I've reported, where the Germans give a budget was half as much as last year. People complain, but actually they just add to it throughout the year, and that's exactly what they did last year. It could be that's what's going on here. Now, Germany wants to deliver another weapons package worth 1.4 billion. So this appears to be different from this 400 million reported in 400 million euros, $445 million in Reuters. This is a 1.4 billion euro package by the end of 2024, according to Der Spiegel. The package includes an ammunition for Geopol, 20 Marder reconnaissance and attack drone reconnaissance, 20 Marder reconnaissance and attack drones, and spare parts for weapon systems that have already been delivered, says Max 24. Right. We also have War Translated saying, in a newly announced support package, Germany will transfer Ukraine over 20 Leopard 105 tanks, 60,000 155mm shells, in addition other vital equipment. We've got Kiev Independent saying Germany to deliver or delivers over 20 Leopard 1 tanks, Gepard anti-aircraft guns and other aid to Ukraine. And then we have German aid to Ukraine coming to our rescue and saying, hang on, what's going on here? Spiegel has published a new article. Headline, quote, German government puts together a new arms package for Ukraine. Before you read something regarding this here on Twitter, as I've just indicated, I wanted to comment on the story in detail. Trust me, this will be a long tweet. Okay, according to the story, it is about a weapons package worth 1.4 billion euros, which is to be delivered to Ukraine by the end of the year. Quote, according to Spiegel information, the package will include 20 Marder 103 infantry fighting vehicles, ammunition for Gepard and Cheetah, self-propelled anti-aircraft guns, reconnaissance drones, spare parts, and more. A total of 50 different items are to be delivered. However, many of my regular readers, and that includes you guys, because I communicate to you what he says, are probably already starting to realise what is going on here. Most of the items mentioned were already publicly announced several weeks ago by me, and later by the German government. Some of them were also announced by the manufacturers themselves. To name just one example, Rheinmetall CEO Papiger announced back in May 2024 that the remaining Marder 1A3s would be delivered by the end of September, i.e. this month. With 50 different items, this naturally adds up to 1.4 billion euros, but it is by no means a new package. These are normal deliveries, most of which have already been announced, which are carried out on a weekly basis. We can do the maths. The two announced Iris-T SLM-fire units, the 4 Iris-T SLS launchers, and the missiles that will go with them are worth something around 300 million euros. With at least 130,000 155mm high explosive shells, we now add another item, which adds another 416 million to our calculation. With 4 different items, we are therefore already at over 700 million euros, i.e. half the package. Okay, now we are adding together 397 million euros, which are additional funds to be allocated for the military assistance to Ukraine. Talks about these funds have been ongoing since May, if I recall correctly. So that looks like the $400 million that Max 24 was initially talking about. Talks about these have been going on since May. The money will mainly be used to buy large spare parts packages. That brings us to 1.113 billion euros. So we are still about 300 million euros short of the 1.4 billion stated in the Spiegel article. According to the German government, the remaining 300 million includes 10 Cheetah Spags, 6 Panzerhauser 2000s, 4 Susanna 2 self-propelled guns, an unknown amount of RCH 155 self-propelled guns, drones, mainly vector drones and anti-drone systems, around 30 Leopard 1A5 main battle tanks, plenty of FFG MRAPs, mine-resistant ambush protection vehicles, logistical vehicles like trucks, tankers, various vehicles like off-road vehicles, pickups, minivans, assault rifles like the MK556, medical material, and 1 forward surgical team system. So you can see that it can easily reach 1.4 billion euros with the deliveries already announced weeks and months ago. If for whatever reason the deliveries from the Czech initiative are not included, then in my calculation, the missing 416 million will certainly be reached through other items pledged. After all, the government, Spiegel, and the manufacturers I mentioned are just part of the 50 different items planned to be delivered until the end of the year. What I find interesting, and where I think the main focus should have been placed, is on the financing. The Spiegel writes that the remaining supplies are to be largely financed by the funds collected, 1 billion euros through the IAAD, question mark. So that was a brief reminder, the immediate action on air defence is a German initiative to strengthen Ukrainian air defence in the short term, in which participants are able to provide either military equipment or financial resources, similar to the Czech initiative, just with a different purpose, that you could also donate equipment. Now, I wonder whether this is actually true, or whether the Spiegel is confusing or misrepresenting something here. So on and no, we will go through this actually. On the one hand, I can't imagine it's legally right for Germany to misuse funds provided by other governments for the Ukrainian air defence and use them to finance their own bilateral assistance, which is mostly has nothing to do with the air defence equipment. On the other hand, the 1 billion euros is also made up of funds that have already been invested for other purposes. Canada has provided 52 million for the procurement of RSTSL missiles. Norway has given 125 million for the procurement of Gen-T missiles for the Bundeswehr after donations to Ukraine. In addition, the Netherlands and Denmark have been together provided slightly more than 100 million euros for the same purpose. I'm also very sure that the 1 billion euros also includes equipment commitments. For example, Italy has pledged a SAMP-T fire unit, Lithuania 6 Amber 1800 air surveillance radars. Remember those big arrays that spin around? I showed you them some time ago. Further commitments of equipment come from Belgium, France, Great Britain, Romania, Spain, and the US. So these are no funds which could be used for other purposes. In the end, at least according to the publicly available information, only a small part of the 1 billion euros is still available, or in other words, not allocated yet. This includes a 200 million euro donation made by Belgium. So in my opinion, what the article says about financing cannot be true, at least not to the extent they are portraying. What I can imagine is that a mistake was made there and it only affects certain items. For example, it has been public knowledge for a long time that Norway has provided around 86 million euros via the IAAD, which will be used to co-finance one of the two RST-SLM units, fire units that Germany wants to deliver by the end of the year. In total, a maximum amount of in the mid 3-digit million range is likely to remain unallocated. There can be no question of 1 billion euros. So yeah, my 2 cents about this article. This article seems to have combined partly public information with some intel they have, and I think also misrepresented some facts. There are some open questions for me which I'd like to have an answer to. The IAAD stuff, for example. In other words, still fairly confused. There appears to be an awful lot of equipment yet to go to Ukraine that has been financed in some way, but not quite sure how. Now, an awful lot of that equipment is going to go by the end of this year, but these are not necessarily new packages that are going to go. They appear to be fairly, packages that have already been, or items that have already been announced. For example, the Sky Ranger 35 has been talked about before. These are these new, like the Skynext gun, but instead of being on a modular platform, or not modular platform, on it's a stationary platform. They've loaded it on a Leopard 1 chassis. Quick reminder that Rheinmetall plans to deliver 10 of these to Ukraine, and talks have been ongoing for a year now. However, as is always the case with plans, you need funding to go with them, and that's the issue here. So another thing to throw in there is that these have been promised, but there's not necessarily any funding yet. Long and the short of it is that the Germans seem to be doing an awful lot of providing equipment at the moment, really useful military equipment, but we're not quite sure where it fits in terms of funding, etc., etc. Okay, and then German aid to Ukraine says he's adding on to the funding question we had from yesterday. Additional funds for Germany's military assistance where they want more. According to a letter from Parliamentary State Secretary at the Federal Ministry of Finance, Florian Tonka, at the Budget Committee of the Bundestag, the additional funds for the German military assistance to Ukraine in 2024 will amount to nearly 400 million euros. So that's where we go back to Max 24's. Germany is set to approve close to 400 million euros in military assistance, according to Reuters. That's about 100 million less than was expected, according to Spiegel, and about 3.4 billion less than the MOD has asked for, according to Die Bild, a German tabloid there. So nevertheless, with nearly 400 million in additional funds for military aid for the remaining year, a lot can be realised. So yeah, there were some claims that maybe an extra 4 billion was going to be on the way. 400 million is obviously not quite as much, but still better. So, goodness me, you're probably as confused as I still am as to exactly what is going on there. But Germany is doing quite a lot. I think is a TLDR we can take away from that. This is the M113 I was talking about earlier today. One that I presume is one of the captured M113s, Russian captured ones. So what's interesting about this is Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk Oblast have lost. So they have lost this. It does appear to be the captured one. It lost this vehicle. It's an American US supplied M113A3. With a new Ukrainian-made manned turret with 12.7 millimeter M2 Browning machine gun. Many M113s were delivered to Ukraine, but either with no protection for the gunner at all, or the gunner is too exposed to enemy fire in the original turret. So this new turret protects the gunner from all directions, including from above. So that is an adaptation to an older bit of kit that gives it a little bit of an advantage over what they would have otherwise had. So good stuff there from the Ukrainian mechanics. Estonian defense company Frankenberg Technologies is to launch an anti-drone system production in Ukraine. The move aims to increase European defense companies' interest in establishing facilities in Ukraine. So the Estonians now setting up shop with one of their manufacturers. We've had Rheinmetall, BAE Systems, Northrop Grumman, a whole bunch of international defense entities getting interested in setting up in Ukraine. You would assume they're doing all their risk management, making sure it's going to make them financial sense, but it's just a lot easier for them to produce stuff for Ukraine in the country, and then if it goes wrong, they can no doubt maintain it as well. Okay, since the 2022 invasion began, a total of 864 main battle tanks have been pledged to Ukraine. Of those, 589 have been confirmed to have been delivered. So it's interesting that actually almost 300 more main battle tanks are due to be delivered, which is a fairly sizable number, right? This number does understate the actual amount of delivered main battle tanks, as for some never get confirmation how many of the pledged units have been delivered. So actually, although I say there's almost 300 still to be delivered, they could well have been delivered. So these ones in grey are supposedly not yet delivered, and the ones in white have been. So you can see here, Canada was at 8 Leopards. We've got Czechia providing a whole bunch of T-72s and then some unknown tanks there. Czechia and Germany, some more T-72s. Denmark, a load that still haven't been delivered, or at least not been announced, as well as, so those are T-72 EAs. And then Denmark and Netherlands, a whole load of Leopard 2A4s, maybe still to be provided. Leopard 1A5s from Germany, and that could be what we just heard about in one of the packages. At least some of those to go. That's an awful lot of them there. Leopard 2A6s from Germany have all gone by the looks of it. From Portugal and Germany, 3 of those. From Slovenia and Germany, we have these M555s. No, M55S, sorry, not M55S. These are old T-55s that have been upgraded by actually an Israeli company to be kind of half-decent tanks, not just the old T-55s. So they've been in use in Slovenia for some time. They've gone. Leopard 2A4s from Spain and Germany. Leopard 1A5DKs from Denmark, Netherlands and Germany. This is often to do with the funding, not necessarily where they were. So sometimes you get a flag funding the tanks that were from another country, and then you've got Germany fixing them up maybe. So there's all sorts of different ways of understanding these flags. Netherlands again T-72s, Netherlands again T-72 EAs from US and the Dutch. A lot of grey tanks here from all these three. But it's not to say that they are still to go. They might have been delivered, just don't know about them. But that's a lot of T-72s they could still receive. I doubt it though. North Macedonia, T-72As there. A lot of those have gone. Iceland? No, that's not Denmark. That's Norway. Norway. Leopard 2A4NO, NO, Norway. A number from there. Then we got Poland, Leopard 2A4s, and then a whole load of tanks from Poland there, T-72Ms and other variants. PT-91, which is a T-72 upgraded variant. Now they're grey, yet we have seen those. I've seen them up in Kursk, so they have definitely, at least some of them have been delivered, although it haven't been confirmed. Leopard 2A4s from Spain. Sweden, Stridsvagn, in fact, one of those has just been blown up in Kursk. I've just seen a video of that about 20 minutes ago. So you can cross one of those off. Challenger 2s from the British, 14 of those were delivered, although I was told by someone in the know that we had actually doubled that without telling anyone, but I've seen no evidence of that. So someone in the know might not been in the know. And then Americans, 31 Abrams, although there was also some rumours they were going to give more Abrams, maybe under, on the slide, but I don't know that that's happened either. So anyway, that's to go through all the main battle tanks that have been given out, which is a lot, really. But then they do cycle through them really rather quickly. The Russians will get through that in the morning. Okay. Kyiv Independent reports that Indian shells are flowing to Ukraine despite protests from Russia, Reuters reports. The artillery ammunition manufactured in India is being diverted to Ukraine despite protests from Moscow, Reuters reported on September the 19th, citing customs data and nearly a dozen Indian and European government and defence industry officials. That is awesome, India. So it could be a case of India talking out both sides of their mouth, giving Putin a hug in Moscow, and then going and giving Zelensky a hug in Kyiv, and in the end, whoever pays them the most money will get the most kit. India delivered, in conjunction with an Italian company, artillery shells to Ukraine, says Tendai. An exclusive report by Reuters can reveal. The Indian shells are part of the Czech shell initiative, which we knew some were going to come from India anyway, and South Africa, although I think South Africa might have been convinced not to fulfill that, and they've kind of reneged on their initial, the initial delivery of those South African Soviet-era shells. Now, this is just a comment from I Have a Brain and Use It, who says, we can thank Trump for the new SAMP-T, and I think that's a kind of sort of sarcastic. We can thank Trump for the new SAMP-T, and that will kill off the Patriot cells in the EU. So SAMP-T, there's going to be a new SAMP-T that's going to be, so they are saying, the best at shooting down ballistic missiles. So a rival to the Patriot PAC-3. These will be so much cheaper for each country to buy, and of course the long tail of missile supplies will be a good money earner for France for decades. I doubt any American actually understands the full economic implications and subsequent ramifications of Trump's "we would encourage Russia to attack" speech. This is really important, right? So when you have someone like Trump giving a bombastic speech saying, oh, you can do what the hell you want, NATO, blah, 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 you then get Europe going, oh, bugger. If he becomes president, we can't trust what the Americans are going to do. He's going down an isolationist route. This then has ramifications on... So around that kind of same time, the Europeans came up with a new military strategy that said we need to make sure that 60% of our military procurement is from within Europe. And this makes sense because we can't trust outside of Europe because they might change with the political winds changing, and that is too much of a security risk. There's a really good point to this that people might listen to Trump or whoever it might be and go, oh yeah, that's brilliant, yeah, screw them, and you need to pay for your own stuff. And like I've said to you a million times, that okay, fair enough, but you do realise that when Europe start paying for their own stuff more and more, that means their own stuff. Because with that, if they're going to pay more and more money for defence, higher percentage of GDP on defence, that money will be much more likely to be spent within Europe. As part of, like, going back to one of the first things I said in this video, is if you're going to spend, you want to spend it on yourselves. So I'd much rather spend my money in my country so that my peeps get the jobs and I can get some tax revenue back as well and reinvest that, and money makes money multiplier, etc., etc. Stimulus, New Deal or whatever. The more you push Europe and allies away by going, you guys suck, you're not doing enough, these countries will go, oh, screw you. We'll go away and we'll do our own thing. Thank you very much. So you've got the potential that NATO might crumble, or NATO becomes more Eurocentric. And Americans might like that, but then they don't get to dictate what goes on in the world, because actually they've stepped away from being the hegemonic power and dictating, global affairs, because that's what isolation does. But with that comes an economic cost, a defense economic cost. Anyway, ultimately, it would kill off US arms industry, he says, because the EU now sees how vulnerable they have allowed themselves to become. Expect to see a mass exodus of US arms makers towards Europe, which is already happening with manufacturing of existing technology, but expect to see all the major US arms suppliers moving their R&D to Europe, or at least setting up joint venture R&D with European manufacturers. That is fascinating. Cool comment there. Not cool, but really useful comment to get us thinking about the ramifications of the kind of rhetoric that you might hear from one or another politician in the US, and how it actually has economic heft and economic impact. And if we start seeing American defense manufacturers start to set up shop in Europe, we might be able to join the dots there. Right, finally, in a month, Russia produces from 42 to 56 ballistic and 90 to 115 long-range cruise missiles, 500 Shahed 136s, according to Forbes Ukraine. 500 Shahed, so that would be, so if we have 30 days, 300, 30, 60, yeah, that still doesn't cover what they are sending at the moment. Like they're sending 50, 40, well, it depends. Sometimes it's sort of 20, but 20 to 60 Shaheds a day at the moment. And that is more than they're producing according to those numbers. So maybe they're either inaccurate or they are procuring still a lot from Iran. Interesting to see. But yeah, I don't know what you make of that. 42 to 56 ballistic missiles, 90 to 115 long-range cruise missiles. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care, guys, and speak to you soon. Toodle pips.